Have you ever wondered whether winning an award will change your life as a writer?
Well, we found somebody who has to know, because last year he won the Kindle Story Award, which is Peter Gibbons, and we talked to him in the upcoming interview.
Hi, so we're Andrea and Freya, and we're on our way to become international best-selling authors.
And we take you along for the ride. So, nice. A month ago, we've been in London.
To the London Book Fair, and we met somebody there that we can't wait to introduce to you guys.
His name is Peter Gibbons, and in 2022 he won the Kindle Storyteller Award, and we were wondering, how can winning an award like this change your life? Or does it?
So we talk
at all?
Yeah, so he answered that question, I guess, and if you want to find out, stick around.
So, as we promised, we want to take you along for a ride on becoming international best-selling authors. So, we'd like to share with you what happened within the past month and, how we are doing this. Right, Freya?
Well, yeah, so we wanted to give you an update on where we stand, and right now Andrea and I actually feel really awesome about where we stand because we've just talked to two different people who are truly amazing, and so we talked to James Blatch from the Self-Publishing Formula, might ring a bell, the name, and the second one we talked to is Peter Gibbons, who we just talked to. And these interviews have been a blast, you could say, and have really made us feel welcomed, I guess, in the international book community.
And the thing is, we didn't only have these two guys on our podcast, but yesterday, Freya and I, we still can't believe it. It's just so crazy. We've been guests on the Self-Publishing show, and that's like a thing. And I think it was in February when I talked to Freya, and I told her, this is our big time goal. One day, in the far, far future, we will be on that podcast. And then we met, and then it just happened. Like 3 months later, we've just been interviewed by James Blatch yesterday, and it was a blast. It was crazy.
And I remember when you told me, let's make this our goal, I was like, yeah, right. I don't know. I thought, well, maybe someday, but this is not something what we're gonna do within a few months' time. So it feels incredible, and it was because we went to London and met all these amazing people, and which was just a great experience all around.
Yes. And what I've done else to become an international best-selling author is I started networking. I started to connect with bloggers, ARC readers, and authors. And there are some things I realized. It's the first thing. It's really great to connect with other authors on Instagram. Well, I knew that because that's what I've done in Germany. But I really got into conversations so quickly. I just wrote to some authors who seemed to be interesting to me, and I asked them, what's the most wonderful thing about you? And some really responded. And the thing is, I know not everybody would respond to a question like that. And that was kind of the point, because I only wanted people to respond to that question who would respond to that question. You know? I didn't want to get in contact with people who don't like questions like these, because I'm a happy person, and I love wonderful things, and I love people who think they are kind of wonderful too. So I met wonderful people by that, and I already met some people who are going to read my book, which is amazing. And and the other thing I realized about
Well, the great thing is, because we are just coming out of our chat with Peter Gibbons, this is like his one big recommendation that you have just basically proven right, that he recommended, to get in touch with other authors. Don't hesitate. Don't be shy. They will welcome you with open arms. You have done just that, have made that exact experience. And this is such an important part as a journey as an author, to reach out and to build your network and to join this amazing and positive community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think for this, Instagram is amazing. Facebook probably as well. But as I kind of already know from Germany, Instagram is not my place to connect with bloggers. I just don't like connecting there with bloggers because I don't know why. And so Freya and I, we have just started doing the self-publishing formula class on TikTok. And so I really want to get into book talk, and I think Freya is the same for the English market, to connect with bloggers, because I think that's really the way to go right now, and YouTube, but TikTok mainly. Yeah.
So.
And there's one thing we both actually did. And Freya is not aware of what I'm saying right now, but I just get her.
That's why I'm making this face.
Because I've just played around a lot with redoing my cover for my debut novel, which is going to be the first novel I'm going to publish in English as well. And the German cover is like this, and I've heard so often that it's just not exciting enough for the English market. So say something different if you feel differently. But I just came up with different cover ideas, and I'm kind of stuck with this one, and I've kind of got really nice feedback from people. And Freya has also already an English cover for her book, right? Don't you? I do. Yes, I got the first my flagship series in Germany, the urban fantasy one, is I basically turned the covers into English covers, and they turned out beautiful. And I think the first response that I got was actually on the London Book Fair, where I showed it to them, and the person I showed it to, she said, like, I want to read the book, which is exactly what you're going for. So I'm really excited about that, and just looking at them had my heart pump. And and I guess we
that's
show them
what's
to you
supposed to
here,
happen.
so you can see them now, so you know what we're
And
talking about.
Please give us feedback. Tell us what you think.
And
because
which covers you like, which covers you respond to, which covers make you pick up a book.
Yeah, exactly. Recommend anything away. So
your own as well, of course. Sorry,
we are curious.
I'm so sorry.
Don't worry.
Okay, so now, without further ado, let's go into the interview. Hello, Peter. It's so good to see you. It's so good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's great to be here, and thanks for having me on the podcast. It's a lovely day here in Ireland. I'm not sure what it's like in Germany, but the sun is shining, so it's good.
Yeah, sun is shining, as you can see. Well, at least we're in different countries, in different cities.
Yeah, well, and it looks like I don't know, in the middle of the night, which I'm not. It's just, so I'm looking at blue sky, actually.
Yeah. A sunny day is kind of a rare thing here in Ireland, so we have to kind of we have to celebrate it when it happens.
So I push the sun towards your clouds. I draw the clouds because I like clouds. We asked you before what your favorite quote was, and it was from Marcus Aurelius, who I love him. He's one of my big, doesn't matter. But the one thing, the quote you liked was, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you find strength," which is amazing, and I everybody should relate to this. But the question that came into my mind was, is that true for positive events as well? Do you have to keep the positive events like outside?
Yeah, I think it's about. I think what the reason that quote resonates for me is more about trying to realise that you can only control what you can control. So a bit like when you, as you guys know, right, when you're getting great reviews, that's great. When you're getting bad reviews, it hurts. But what you need to try and do is kind of keep a balanced view and stay in control. Like, you can't control it if somebody gives you a bad review, and equally you can't control if somebody gives you a good review. You can only control the work that you put together and that you publish, and you do your best and you put it out there, and what will be will be. And equally, what that's about for me is just trying to excel and like that, and control the things you can and be the best you can be, without focusing on what other people are doing, being jealous of what other writers are doing, and try and find your own lane and be focused on what you're doing and trying to do the best that you can do, right? I think that's really why that quote resonates for me. And if you can control a lot of those things and not let yourself be stressed and distracted by outside events, I think it sets you on a good path and a good focus, right?
Love that.
Yeah, me too.
Which actually is a great,
Transition.
It's a great transition, because something that we really wanted to talk to you about. We met at the London Book Fair, obviously, and we went to the KDP display, and there you were, because you are this year's winner of the Kindle Storyteller Award. So congratulations again on that. It's
Thanks.
amazing. And so in terms of what you just said about, control what you can control, and winning an award like this is obviously something that you have very little control over. So you can hand in your manuscript and you can try, basically, but other people are deciding whether you are awarded with this. And so this also is basically a situation which is very positive for you, because you won this award, but it's also a situation that you don't really have control over, because it's something that basically happened to you. So how do you, with this great quote of Marcus Aurelius, you say in English, I think, in mind. So how do you, how do you respond to this amazing thing that you won this award?
That was really a kind of a hit and hope kind of thing. It was like I came across the Kindle Storyteller Award at the time when I was publishing that novel, which is the fourth novel in that particular series. And if you publish your novels between I think they do the same competition in Germany as well, I think. But if you publish your novel between, I think it's now like May and August, or May and September, and if you use the Kindle Storyteller as one of your keywords, when you upload your book to Amazon, it automatically enters you into the competition. So when I was kind of uploading the book, I thought, well, I might as well enter the book, 'cause I can always go in and replace the keyword afterwards, right, if I don't win. And I kind of forgot about it, because sometimes you do these things on a whim. You kind of enter if it's free, you just enter the competition, you forget about it. And then in kind of September time then, or late August, I think it was, I got an email from Amazon, from KDP, to say, are you free for a call? And I was like, because I'd forgot. And what was really surprising was that a lot of the previous winners are all kind of thriller or romance, right? The big genres. So I was kind of surprised to see a historical fiction book be nominated for the shortlist, and in particular my book being nominated for the shortlist. But it was all super exciting, and I think with things like that, it's not necessarily something that you need to control. I think the control element in those kind of situations is to not be disappointed if you don't get shortlisted, and not to be jealous of the people that do, but to be supportive and congratulate people, and not let that creep into your life. So that's really where that particular Marcus Aurelius quote is applicable there, in that it's okay to enter the competition and be hopeful to win, but what's important is to control your response if you don't win. Or what was funny on the night of the awards, it was kind of at the Houses of Parliament in London, and I didn't for a second expect to win. Yeah, it was fabulous, right? Because you go in and there's all the ancient kind of medieval architecture and all that kind of stuff, and all the people that the guys that were nominated, like J.D. Kirk is a really successful crime writer, as well as being a really good guy. And there were other really good writers nominated, but they were all kind of either romance or thriller, lesbian romance as well, which is a kind of a really strong genre. So I didn't I knew from the judging panel that they might be more sympathetic to those type of books. So I brought my wife to the ceremony. When they were announcing the winners, she was actually videoing me, because we were going to do like a funny thing, like at the Oscars when they film people. And when they're not nominated, they all kind of look really happy. And we were going to do something funny where we'd try and look really annoyed, for a joke. And then it was obviously super surprised then to win. But yeah, the kind of Marcus Aurelius thing, the Stoic philosophy is to control yourself, so that to be happy for the people that won and not to be jealous or upset. That particular quote is more about that, right? It's more about keeping yourself on a good level,
Well, but also allowing yourself to be happy because obviously this is an amazing win. And I love that story, about your wife filming you. I mean,
Yeah,
this is like,
it,
those are just the moments, right?
yeah, it was brilliant, and I made a lot of good friends during the process. Like Claire
Cool.
Lydon, who's she writes kind of lesbian romance, is a really good friend now, and she writes brilliant books. J.D. Kirk is a good friend. Anne Gerd Harry, who wrote a really good book, that like a mystery book. So all those guys that we kind of met during the process have all been really supportive, and I'm really try and be supportive for them as well on social media. So yeah, it's all positive stuff, right? And I would definitely say to anybody who's listening, if you're self-published and you're publishing a book within that window where you can enter the competition, just enter it, right? Because it only costs you, I can't remember how many it is, but I think you've 8 keywords. It only costs you one
Exactly.
keyword. So there's nothing to lose, and then at the end of the window, if you're not shortlisted, you can just replace the keyword, right? So I definitely recommend everybody to enter, and on the back of that competition, I was lucky enough then to win the prize, and you get lots of publicity and all those things, and all that helps then with your profile. And like, I wouldn't be talking to you guys today, right, if I wasn't,
No, you wouldn't.
so and I've been on a couple of podcasts, and your social media kind of following grows, and your mailing list grows, and all the things that you're trying to achieve. So it was a really, really positive experience for me, and I definitely recommend everybody who's listening, if they're self-published, to enter.
So Marcus Aurelius is connected to the Stoic philosophy. Are you following this philosophy? Is that part of your life?
Try to, but no, try to. But it's like anything, right? You try and live by those kind of that code. Yeah, and I think it's important then, like that, just to keep yourself even, to not let yourself get too high with the highs, but not too low with the lows, and try and stay on it.
And how does it affect your writing and your life as an author?
Just like that, really, just to try. And I suppose a good example is, right, in the writing world. Like in my previous life, I worked in the insurance industry. I actually worked for Allianz, which is a big German insurer, right?
Yes.
So I was global head of sales for their international health insurance division. And in that market, obviously, there's a lot of competition, and it's really you're kind of up against your competitors, and you're trying to win clients and blah, blah, blah. And what I was really surprised about when I became an author was how nice everybody is, and how supportive everybody is.
Yeah,
And,
I relate to that.
Yeah, me too.
And it's so cool, right? And I think that makes it easier to kind of live or try and keep yourself on that kind of Stoic philosophy train of thought, because it's very hard to have bad thoughts about people, because everybody is super supportive. And
that's true.
Even when I launched my first book, I kind of reached out to a few established authors, and one guy in particular, Matthew Harvey, who's kind of a successful best-selling historical fiction writer, was kind of really nice to me and gave a recommendation for my book, and did like an interview with me for his website. And he didn't need to do that, because he's already established and super successful. And it's little things like that made you really want to be part of that world of writing.
Yes.
And like you guys, we met at London Book Fair, and now we're having this discussion. Everybody's super nice and super supportive, and I think that influences you to be the same, right? And I think that really helps you to live by that kind of those Stoic philosophical principles, because in the writing world, I think people generally are really nice and supportive. You don't really get anybody who's trying to hurt you or be horrible. Everybody's just trying to... I think it's like that old saying. There's an old saying in English, right? I don't know how it translates to German, but a rising tide floats all boats. So like... And that was what...
Yeah, I know that one, yeah.
Yeah, that's what Matthew Harvey said to me at the time was... If I become successful and people start buying my books and we're in the same genre, more people will buy his books, right? So, and that really stayed with me, and I think that's really encouraging. I think again for anybody who's listening, who's aspiring to become an author, like it really is a great industry, and people will support you. And don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask for advice and ask for help, because everybody's super nice, right?
Yeah,
It's
something
really inspiring. Yeah.
And it's something that I was also very surprised by when I first entered the author world. Not just this supportive community, but also this is how Andrea and I met. I reached out to her on Instagram, and she was already a very well-established author, and I was just starting out and had done everything wrong, possibly.
No,
And
not everything.
still, well,
The book
but
was great.
still, but this is the great thing, you know. There was no hesitation for her, you know, to get in touch with me, and this started this amazing friendship. And this is something, I have a law background, and there it is vastly different. So you have people like with their huge egos and this big competition. Everyone is trying to get ahead of themselves, basically. And with writing, it's the total opposite. Even though you would think it might be different, because, you know, there's different best-selling lists and stuff, but still, this it's a friendly competition in which, you know, people are encouraging others to do well also, and it's something that I found surprising and totally refreshing, actually.
Yeah, for sure, it's great, right? And I think it's a great community to be a part of, and we're very lucky. And it's funny what you said there about when you guys first got in touch, and you said you were doing everything wrong, which probably wasn't the case. But Andrea said that your book was great, and it's funny, isn't it? Like the book is only one part of it. Like
Yeah,
you could have the best book ever, but if you don't do the other bits and pieces to go with it, it'll never see the light of day, right?
It's really annoying, actually.
Yeah, because you've written this thing and put so much passion and work into it, and you think you can just push it out there and it's going to do well, but unfortunately, you need to get the other nuts and bolts right.
But I think this is the amazing thing for self-publishing. I think there's this misconception about being an author. You just write a great book and everything just happens from there on. And self-publishing is acknowledging the fact that you need to put in work with a book. It needs to have the right cover. It needs to be advertised and marketed, and you need to tell people about it. It's something that self-publishing is, I think, much more honest, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you are required as an author to put in the work, and
And writing really is only the first step, right? It's just like the very the very beginning of pushing the book out.
Yeah, and you have to get in the frame of mind that you are your own publisher. So you have to be doing for yourself everything that a traditional publisher would do for one of their authors. So you have to have your cover, like you say, and it's got to be a cover that's on genre. You have to have your blurb, your metadata right. So you've got to have the right keywords in your blurb. You need to have your website with being able to capture people who come to your website for your mailing list. You have to have all those bits and pieces right. You've got to have your ads right, like you say, and you have to invest some money into that. And all those things have to be in place. You need to get your book edited properly. So you need to give yourself the best chance of success. But I think like that, when you're self-publishing, the clue is in the title, right? You're publishing yourself, so you have to get in that kind of mind frame and do some courses and upskill yourself and give your book the best chance of success, because there are thousands of books published every day, right? So to make yours kind of stand out and be successful as it possibly can be, you need to spend some time and invest in yourself. Get your non-writing skills where they need to be, and that's as huge a part of making yourself successful as writing the book. Because like that, and going back to winning the award and all those different things, like I was able to quit my job there in January and write full time. And
congrats! Wow,
yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, and it is amazing, right? But I think like that, if anybody's interested in self-publishing, I would definitely recommend people to take the time and invest in themselves, upskill, spend some time on your website, spend some time on your mailing list, and learn. And make sure that when you've put so much time, like it could be a year or more, into this beautiful book that you've written and invested so much time and love into, give it the best chance, right? And give yourself the best chance to follow your dream. And a lot of that is like doing the courses and understanding how it works, you know.
Did you do that with your first book? And how many books have you written before the book that won the award? Yeah,
so my first book came out in September 2021. And that was called Viking Blood and Blade, which was about the Viking invasion of Anglo-Saxon England in the 9th century. So it was about all that. So it's like a Viking historical adventure kind of book. And so at the time, then when I launched that first book, I did spend a lot of time learning about what I had to do. And but when you launch your first book, you don't know whether one person is going to read it or 1,000 people. So you're trying to put together like a free website, and you build it yourself, and you don't want to spend too much on ads. And luckily that book did really well. And the book that won the award then was King of War, which was the 4th book in that series.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like a series of Viking adventures. So that book, King of War, was the 4th one. And I've published another one since, and have another book in that series out in June. But yeah, like definitely, and as I got going then, and the second book came out, and the third, had more royalties coming in, so I kind of upgraded the website and spent more time on like that Facebook ads and Amazon ads, and using Facebook ads to build your mailing list and all those kind of those key components. But I was lucky because my first book did well, and that really gave me the platform then to carry on. And I was kind of getting up at 5 o'clock every morning to write before work and doing all those things. And
I know someone else who does that.
yeah, and you have
Andrea.
to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you
So I
have to.
started.
Because I have 3 kids as well and all that, so you kind of have to be super. If you have a dream and you want to do it, you have to be super focused, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I relate to that as well. I've got 2 kids too, and they have me up and running, and you have to find the time, and you have to be super disciplined about it, because
the day is gone, right? You can't
Yeah,
sit
exactly.
down.
The days. I only have one, but yeah.
Yeah.
So you've written 4 books in a year. Is that true?
Yeah, so I wrote Viking Blood and Blade came out in the September of 2021, and in 2022 I released 4 books that year. And then
Wow.
going into 2023 then. So during that time then in 2022, I also signed a traditional publishing deal with a trad publisher. So I do both. So I have a self-published series and a traditionally published series. So there's 2 books in the trad series, and a third one due out in August. So what I kind of did during 2022 was try and write as much, because part of the formula to be successful in self-publishing is you do need to get a couple of releases out every year at least. If you can, try and get to 3 or 4, because as you guys know, every time you self-publish and release a book, you kind of get a crest of a wave in Amazon, and your books sell well, and people want to pre-order the next book.
Exactly.
So if you've too long of a gap between the books that you're releasing, you kind of fall down the algorithm. And so what I kind of committed to in 2022 was trying to get that velocity right and release as many books as I could. So I did.
So do you? Sorry.
Yeah.
go on.
Sorry. Yeah. No. Go ahead. Yeah.
So do you write, and how many words do you write in a day, or do you dictate as well?
No, I don't dictate. So, but that's a big thing now, right? And I keep meaning to try it, but I write. Yeah. So when I was working, I tried to do at least 2,000 words a day. Mm-hmm. So in the morning, and then a bit more in the evening if I needed to. But now that I'm full time, I try and do a bit more, so between 2,000 and 3,000 a day. But it's hard, right? It's not like performing a task.
Yes.
Like working on a spreadsheet or building a wall or something like that. Writing is kind of a creative task, right? So you've only so much headspace. So you might say to yourself, I'm going to write 2,000 words today, but sometimes you just can't. And it depends where you are.
Sometimes it just flows.
Yeah,
So
and other
it's
times
like,
it flows, right? So you can,
Yeah.
but if you set yourself that target, and sometimes you're slightly below and sometimes above, then it works, right? And then the numbers kind of add up then. So if you're doing your 2,000 words a day, you're hitting your 10,000 words a week, and so on and so on and so on, and that really helps you get your books out on time. And you have to kind of stick to that discipline. And then you have your window then to get your book edited and proofread and all those different things. But yeah, that was really important for me, was to kind of follow that blueprint and make sure that I was getting as many releases out kind of during the year as possible. Yeah. And that really set up the platform then,
And you still do that? That's still your thing, that you put as many books out there as possible?
Yeah, but... Yeah, and not as many as possible, but try and stick to that frequency. So try and get at least 4 out a year if I can, because I think that's where the kind of crime, romance, thriller authors are successful in the self-publishing world, is that they try and hit that number. So at 3 and 4 books, some of the guys do more, right? But I think you need to be hitting 3 or 4 a year, because like that, the year you when you release your book, you get a peak on all your other books, and then it slowly goes down. So you want to be making sure that you're getting your other release out before it drops too far, you know.
What I think is, though, I don't know, sometimes I find this number scary, because first of all, I don't make that. I can't, put 3 or 4 books out a year. But sometimes I feel like when you have a story, it kind of needs time, to settle and to really form in your head. It's not something that I find that I can push sometimes, because sometimes I have an awakening and then the story just plays out and I can sit down and write, and I need 6 weeks and the book is basically done. But the weeks and days before I get to that point, I can't really control that. So that is something that Marcus Aurelius probably comes in. Sometimes you have to realize that a story needs time to just take place in your head first before you can put it to the page.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it depends a lot on your genre as well, right? I suppose I'm kind of lucky, because in historical fiction, your research often gives you the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, the events happen. So say, I don't know, say in my the book that I've got coming out there in the summer takes place in Ireland. And a lot of the events actually happen. So that a particular battle has got to happen at this time. Or the characters have got to get from this place to that place, and that kind of helps you with the plot and the story structure. Whereas if you're writing, like, I don't know, urban fantasy or whatever it is, you kind of have to be super creative then, right? And
yes. Yeah, exactly, because you kind of have to do the whole world building and establish rules. And I realized that this takes time. The crime and thriller books that I'm writing, they form much faster, because, you have the real setting, basically. But with fantasy, I realized I want to give those stories time to develop and to until they have reached the form, basically, in which I want to put them out. And because this is one of the great things about self-publishing as well, you have the freedom, basically, to set your own timeline as well.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And it's being self-publishing, you're your own boss, you're running your own business, really. So it's all down to you, right? And I think what you say is true, and you have to kind of balance that, right? If you feel like if you were trying to hit 3 books a year, but the quality of your work was going to suffer, then you're better off waiting and producing a high quality book, because your readers will respond to that then,
Yeah.
And when you lose the fun and the love for it, because you feel like you have to write these books, but you're actually not ready to do it, then, well,
yeah, and you have to enjoy it, right? It has to be what we're doing what we do because we love it, right? It's like it's an artistic pursuit, so you want to make sure that you're having fun. You don't want it to be forced.
And
so would you say?
No,
go ahead.
No, go on.
So like this is maybe like this basically this overall question, but I really want to kind of straight ahead and go and ask it. So having won this award, this Kindle Storyteller Award, which is again really an amazing achievement, would you say it changed your life in a way, or is it just like a stepping stone on your path as an author?
It definitely changed my life, because I don't think I would have excuse me, I would have given up my day job if I hadn't won the award, because, and this will probably resonate with a lot of people, right? When you self-publish, like I'm in an office now that I have out in my back garden, right? But when I've published my first few books, I was writing in the house. So I was writing, at the table or at the breakfast table or wherever it might be while everybody was in bed. And it's kind of it's a solitary thing. So, and I didn't know anyone else who was a writer. Like I didn't know anybody who was an author. So you're kind of doing it yourself. You're learning as you go. You don't really know what you're doing. You put your book out there. You don't know if it's you get beta readers, but in your heart you don't know if what you've produced is rubbish or not. you kind of hope it's good, but you have that fear, and you put it out there. And what winning the award was really good for was I got to meet other self-published authors that I'd never spoken to before. And at the award ceremony, they had Rachel McLean, who won the award the year before, and she's a super successful crime writer. the guys that I mentioned before, J.D. Kirk and so on. And they had other guys there as well, like who I've since met a few times, like L.J. Ross, who's super successful. Guys who were at the awards are from crime and different genres, like J.M. Dalgleish, and everybody was really nice. And the award ceremony was good because I got to chat to those people. So instead of suddenly being alone, it was really good to get their view and their input and their support. And everybody said you have to quit the job and fully commit and go for it. And if I hadn't met those guys, I never would, because I would have been too afraid. And because when you have your family to support and all those different things, it's a big risk. But so the award was good for that. It was also good for my my profile, because obviously there was the cash prize, but as part of the prize you get marketing support from Amazon. So they did
how does that look like?
Yeah, it's great. So they did different things, like they help promote the book. They do, like, if you go on to the Amazon homepage, they have like an editor's picks page. So they did like an editorial on my books, and they brought me to London Book Fair, for example, where I got to meet lots of people. I'm going to the self-publishing show in London.
I saw that.
In June. So I'll be part of a panel discussion there. So there's been all kinds of different things, and they give me great support. So the marketing part of the prize was kind of probably more important than the cash prize, because it really helped boost my profile, and my books are doing quite well. A couple of the books, or probably half of them, are still bestsellers in different categories. So it's been really good. But like I say, it was really encouraging to meet other self-published authors, because like I say, and just to reiterate the point, because I imagine a lot of people who are listening or watching are in the same boat. It is kind of a solitary job, and it's like that, and you have to believe in yourself. But what I would definitely encourage people to do is reach out to other authors, especially self-published authors, because everybody's been there. Everybody has the same fears and concerns that you do, but everybody's there to help and support each other, right?
Yeah. And it's so funny when when you start out, you feel like you're all alone, as you said, and when you start looking for these other authors, they're like everywhere.
I know.
Yeah, and it's like it's literally like an urban fantasy book, isn't it? It's like this world, this hidden world that you open a door to, and all of a sudden there's authors everywhere, and you're like, what? Where have all these people?
And it's just like being home, right? It's like, well,
it's
where have I been all my life?
Exactly,
here.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's the companionship too. You know, you are all of the sudden you have someone you can talk about these things, and you don't feel like there's something wrong with you. This
like
is
you're
how
an
I feel
alien.
a lot of times. Yeah, exactly. And it's I think and one thing obviously with Andrea that I found, and with other authors as well, is you form these amazing friendships where you're like, where have you been all of my life?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely right, and it's amazing, and it's even back before that, when you first start writing, typing, putting pen to paper, dictating, or whatever you're doing. Majority of people aren't even aware of the self-publishing world. I know I wasn't. You start off and you only think that the traditional publishing world exists. So you start off and you start sending out your manuscript to agents and nobody replies, or you get kind of a horrible cold letter back 3 months later. And then you kind of get awakened to the world of self-publishing, right, where it really is possible then to make your dream a reality, and it's great, right? We're all so lucky,
Absolutely.
It's when they talk about publishing in TV shows and stuff. I just watched Jane the Virgin, and the protagonist is an author, and one person says to her, "Well, you can always self-publish." But it's not like, oh, self-publishing, it's this glorious possibility. No, it's like, well, when you don't get a contract with a publishing house, you can always self-publish. Well, but then you're not an author, actually. So
yeah, I think there's probably still that little bit of naivety out there, right? But I think those people would be surprised when they see the royalties that self-published authors are making, right? And I think when you look at some of the trad contracts out there, for us, when we're self-publishing, every ebook you sell, 70% of that is yours, right? So,
Exactly.
and the more, and you won't get that in that world. So I think
No.
if people want to be snobby like that or turn their nose up at self-publishing, then they should probably educate themselves first, because a lot of people in the self-publishing space are super successful. And I know even for my own self, I wouldn't put myself in that bracket of being super, but I'm making enough to support my family, right? And do what I want to do every day. So I definitely think if people, and a lady actually came up to me at the London Book Fair where I met you guys. I can't remember where she was from. I think she was actually from Ukraine or somewhere like that. And she'd had a book written for 2 years, a fantasy book. And all she'd been doing was sending it off to agents and publishers and getting that back. And she's like, do you think I should self-publish it? And I was like, well, let me put it this way. You could have self-published that book 2 years ago, and you could have written 3 or 4 more since, and you would have been earning royalties off that book over that 2-year period, whereas now you've been earning nothing. So for me, for anybody who's listening, who's sat there with a manuscript in their desk or on their laptop, and you're getting knockbacks from agents, really truly have a look at self-publishing, because it'll change your life.
Yeah.
And it's also, it's not just that you make really good money, even more actually on average than traditionally published authors, which I learned on the London Book Fair, which really was an eye-opener as well. But also what I love about self-publishing is that books can be commercially successful that are maybe in a niche and are not, I don't know, like a Tudor romance. I think historical fiction is mainly like traditionally centered around the Tudor era, why ever, and
always
you
romance.
and you have books that are maybe a little bit more special, but they are able to be published and find their audience. So the diversity of the books out there has increased, which is amazing, because they don't want to always read the same thing, right? They want to read different things, and different types of books need a chance to shine. And some of the most amazing books I have read have been self-published, and I was only aware of them because I'm a self-publisher now. But I was really sad about this, that I only discovered them now, because self-published books are adding so much to the quality of the book market in itself, because they are covering so many different topics that would not be covered elsewhere.
Oh, you're completely right about that. I think there's so many subgenres now that people love that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for self-publishing. And whatever it is that you like or you're passionate about, you can find a self-published book there somewhere, right, on Amazon or one of the other stores. And it is amazing. There's lots of new viewpoints and exciting stories, and that would never have seen the light of day, right? So you're 100% right. It's really the depth of genre now you get in self-published books is amazing, and you can find anything, right? It's brilliant.
Yeah. So I was wondering, did winning the award make you is writing after winning the award easier for you? Or because I remember my first book was a really big success, and after that I was like, I can never ever write again such a good book. How was it for you?
It was a little bit like that, yeah. It was a little bit, because I was surprised by how much the judges enjoyed the book, because they were people that wouldn't normally read the genre, the historical fiction genre, right? So my first 3 books before that, even to go back, my first book, I was surprised that it did well, because I'd written this book. It was about Vikings, there's battles in it and crazy stuff happening, and you write it because you love it, and you put it out there and it's successful. And then after the first book, I was kind of worried, because I was like, what if that book is really good and I didn't realize it? And I couldn't think what I'd done that made it good. I'm not articulating that properly, but I wrote the thing. But I was surprised it did well. So when you start writing the second one, you're like, shit, what if the magic I put into that one is gone and this one's really boring? It's like...
Yeah.
So I was less nervous writing the book after the award win than I was writing my second book, because after the award win, I kind of knew then that I had the formula. I knew how to, I'd learned about story structure, I'd learned about the 3-act structure, I'd learned about all those things that I didn't know before. which is really important, right? If people aren't educating themselves on that, you need to understand the different ways to frame your story like that. If it's the 3-act structure or Save the Cat or whatever you're using, people should make themselves aware of those different ways to structure your plot and your story. But yeah, I was more super nervous on book 2 than the book after the award win. After the award win, I was just trying to release a novel as quick as I could to follow on from that success. So I released a book then in the January. I won the award in October. I was already writing the 5th book, but I released that in January, and that did quite well as well. But yeah, it was more book 1 to book 2 to answer your question, and it was probably the same for you guys, right? Because it's like, holy shit, I've written this book and people like it. What if the next one is complete rubbish and everybody hates it, and then I'm done? That was kind of the real.
Yes.
And did you learn about the 3-act structure and all that stuff after the first book or before?
That's a good question, right? So when I wrote the first draft of the first book, it was really long because I'd spent years writing it. Because, and again, this probably resonates with a lot of people, when you're working and you love reading and you love stories, in your head, the thought that you could be a writer is a strange one, right? Because you kind of think you could do it, but it also feels weird because it's like, why am I doing this? Why am I sitting down and typing on this when what I'm writing is probably rubbish, when I could be doing something else, right? I could be, doing whatever. So that's a weird thing. So anyway, I did it. I committed to it, especially in lockdown then, in COVID. Yeah. I kind of got the book finished and it was super long. And I actually, I wasn't sure if it was any good. So I kind of, I paid for like a feedback service, like a structural review, like a structural edit.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. From a place called Jericho Writers in the UK. So I paid for those guys to do a structural edit. And as part of that edit, you get feedback.
Yeah.
On like that story structure, characters, plot, all those different things. And it was probably the big turning point in my career because the feedback came back and said that it was rubbish. So I had no concept of story structure. It was like this rambling kind of story with like too many point of view characters and all those different things. So I was like, right. And again, back to the kind of a Marcus Aurelius point, is to take that feedback in a calm way. Yeah. And not as a personal criticism, right? Yes. So it was to take that feedback and be like, wow, this is brilliant, right? So now I can use that and I can reshape. So what? I cut out 2 point of view characters, cut 50,000 words out of the book. I figured out that it was started in the wrong place. So I'd kind of started it in a weird place, but instead of starting it like right in the heart of the action, I'd started it like way too early, and all those things were really helpful. So then I paused and went off and learned about story structure and all the different ways to structure your novel. I took what I had, and then I looked at the 3-act structure and things. I had to have a starting point, an introduction. I had to have an inciting incident. I had to have this, you had to have a twist at this place and blah, blah, blah. And you had to ramp up the action. And so I recut the manuscript based on those learnings. So I learned it all at that point. This was probably throughout 2021 or late 2020. So that when I had the thing finished, then I sent it out to be beta read. The feedback coming back then was quite good then. Like it was really exciting. The action builds, and that was really what I wanted to make sure that a bit like if you look at the Hunger Games, for example, the Hunger Games, the movie and the book.
Sure. I love them.
Yeah.
Or the books, I love them.
So that book absolutely and to the letter follows the 3-act structure. So exactly. Every single plot point in that book follows that structure. So that's why it's so good, because your mind is geared up to want to see those things happen at certain points, right?
I actually used those books, in my first book, I really have Act 1 and Act 2 and Act 3, it's spelled out actually, because I modeled the plots after this book kind of. It was kind of like my beacon, to structure books. Yeah,
exactly. And once I learned that, then that really made a huge difference to my writing, because when I wrote my first book, I was a pantser, Do you understand? So you know the way you're either a plotter or a pantser. So you either plot your book out, or you just write it off the fly by the seat of your pants, right? So when I wrote the first book, I was a pantser, so I just wrote it. But since then, since I got that feedback and learned about stuff, now I'm a plotter. So like that, I set out the 3 acts and I set out what's going to happen where, and that really helps, that discipline of making sure that the book starts in the right place, that you have like that, there's an inciting incident early on, that the tension kind of mounts up and you have all the things that are supposed to happen in the right places. And
I relate to that so much, yeah.
You write in series, right? Are the books connected to each other, or is there an overall plot?
Yeah, there is. So, sorry, go ahead.
And do you outline the overall plot as well? How do you do that?
In the back of my head, yeah. So each book has its own plot. So each book the first series I wrote is the Viking Blood and Blade saga, right? It starts in like 865 AD. You know, the Vikings come to England and, you know, they kind of take over and blah, blah, blah. So what I try to do is have like a big conflict. So in that first book, it's the invasion, right? The Vikings are coming, wow, everybody's scared, carnage, loads of battles and stuff. But within that is to have a small story, which is the characters and their development. So you've got this one guy, he's come off from, he was born in Novgorod and he's come join this Viking crew and he's come to England, and it's about his growth, his personal growth, and he meets different people. Like and actually what I think one of the factors that won me the award was a lot of the characters in the books are women, but strong kind of Viking type women, which I think people like.
Shield maidens.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, exactly that.
my first name is Freya, so I gotta know.
yeah, for sure, right? For sure. And he meets these guys, and he has this kind of this band. Then, so there's a mix of men and women with different qualities, and it's really about, notwithstanding the big events like the big battles and the invasion. The book is really about those characters and their relationships and how they develop. And so the series then, they go to different places, right? Where they go to France, where there was the siege of Paris. They go to Norway and there's big battles there, and they go to Russia and all these kind of places, right? But the big battles are kind of the backdrop, but the actual series is about the characters and how they grow and who they meet and who they marry and they have children. So it's about those characters. But, you know, the big set pieces, battles, and is kind of... So each book is about a big Viking type event, a big battle. But the thread through the series is the character development. And then my other series, my traditionally published series, it's from the flip side point of view. So it's set 200 years later, but it's told from the Anglo-Saxon side. So for them, it's a different story because they were like really kind of pious in terms of believing in God and Christianity and all those things. And obviously the Vikings didn't. So it's more from their point of view. And again, that's more about the characters. So the main character in that. So the character in the first series is a young guy finding his way, and he grows then throughout the series. In the second series, the Anglo-Saxon guy is older, and he's kind of suffered tragedy, and he's kind of like jaded, and he's trying to find redemption and all those things. So very
it's
different.
The same universe?
No, different.
It's the same. Okay.
Separate, yeah. But
you can tell how passionate you are about those stories. I love every word you have spoken is spoken with such enthusiasm. I really, it's inspiring, really.
Yes. Yeah, and it really makes me want to read the books.
Yeah, but that's why we're lucky, right? We're lucky that every day, even though I'm in this office on my own, you get to spend all day with your characters. And
that's true.
So you're not on your own, you know, you're kind of surrounded by these people that you've created, and that probably sounds a bit weird to people.
And you can basically travel to these places, right?
Yes.
So you can go to the past, and I love that.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, you said that you'd always self-publish, but then again, you made a contract with a traditional publishing house. So what do you prefer? What would you...
So with the traditional publishing deal, it was interesting because the publisher is a digital-first publisher.
Oh, I
So the royalties are higher than you would get through one of the old-fashioned publishing houses. And what the main reason, being honest with you and being completely transparent, I did it was to try and understand. Like, I spend quite a lot on marketing. I don't know about you guys, but I spend quite a lot on Amazon ads and Facebook ads. So if you think about what you get, it was purely a numbers thing. So if you get your 70% royalty, right, on your self-published book for every ebook you sell, what percentage of that then are you spending on ads? Are you reinvesting in yourself? And if the difference between that is more than what the traditional publisher is offering you, then it's worth considering, right? And what I kind of like the idea of was doing both, to have both options, because more for the future. Like, we don't know what's going to happen in 10 years' time. Like, I've always thought about wide publishing instead of just staying with Amazon, but I never have. I always have everything just with Amazon and Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah.
So with the trad deal, it was really to experiment with that and see purely on an income level, do the royalties you get from the publisher outweigh what you're spending on ads with your self-published stuff? But it's still too early to tell yet. First book only came out there late last year, so it's too early really to say. But I think that's it. But I would never have got the traditional deal without the self-publishing stuff. Yeah. So one led on to the other. But I think with self-publishing, obviously you have all the power and all the control, and it's your own business. Whereas with the traditional deal, you have to deliver your manuscript by a certain date and all the rest of it. So, but I think what's positive is to have both, just because it's your business now, it's your career, just to future-proof that, you know.
And I also imagine that if you come to a publishing house and you are already a very well-established self-publishing author, that your word has maybe more weight to it than if you are first starting out, and you just have to be grateful to be there because these people know that you have the other option to self-publish. So you might, be able to have a different position.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess.
For sure, okay. Because you already have your base, you already have success, you already have your mailing list, you already have Facebook followers, you've already had best-selling books. So it's kind of like it's more, what can they bring to you? Whereas when you're starting out, you've no power. So if you're sending off your first novel to agents and publishers, you'd pretty much take whatever you could get, right? You'd take anything that was offered. Whereas once you've invested time in yourself and become relatively successful in self-publishing, then people will want to talk to you because you're an asset, then you've your own value. But you have to also be aware of that, make sure that you don't give too much away, and that you kind of keep a level head. And it pretty much brings us back to where we started, is about that, trying to be calm and not let the good news that comes in completely distract you from what you're trying to do. And
Yeah, which brings us back to Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
I have two questions I ask in my other podcast every time, and we'll publish this interview there as well. So I just ask them, what's the change you wish to see in the book world?
The change I wish to see in the book world is it's a funny one, right? And I don't know the answer to it, but I love bookshops and I love going to bookshops. And I think it would be really good to find a way for self-published authors to get more access to the shelves. I think if you go into a bookshop now, the shelves are still dominated by the trad books, right? And it's still dominated by thrillers and romance. And I think it would be amazing if there was some sort of bookshop retailer who opened their doors up to self-published books. And I know you can through Ingram and all those different things, but you can't really. Some successful authors print their own and have their own arrangements with bookshops, which works quite well. But that would be it's probably more an aspirational thing. But I'd love that to happen. Like if I had a magic wand, or I suddenly won €1 million or whatever it might be, I would do that myself. I'd open a chain of bookshops where all I stocked were self-published books, good quality printing, and because I think people would love it, right? I think because it's still, through ebooks, you're only accessing a certain part of the population with people who have Kindle or the Kindle app. Whereas I think it would
I
be
think
great to be able to
Germany,
walk into.
sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. Go on.
Sorry, in Germany, I think it's 50% of the books are purchased in bookstores
Yeah.
still. So
Yeah. And I imagine that's the same in other European countries, right? I think it's a shame that, a bit like we said before, with all the exciting subgenres, you could have a fantastic bookstore with a coffee shop in, and people could go in and wander around all the different genres that they've never explored and pick up a book. You know, it'd be cool, right?
Yeah.
Ryan Holiday just opened his own bookshop, right?
Right.
Well, so yeah. And my second question is, which book is really high on your to be read what's to be read pile? And why haven't you read it yet?
Gosh, I am kind of a voracious reader, so I do read a lot. The one I'm waiting for, like everybody else, is the next George R.R. Martin book, but he's not written it yet.
Yeah.
So
Seriously, when it is coming
when
out?
is that coming? Yeah. There's a cool series there's a cool book that's due to come out by a really good author called Stephen A. Mackay. He's writing a series about King Alfred, an English king. So I'm really waiting for that, but that's not published yet either. I'm trying to think what I've got on my bookshelf there that I've not read. There are still some books by Matthew Harvey that I've not read that I'd love to get stuck into. But yeah, most of the stuff I want to read, I've read. Like a really good series that I read recently was a fantasy series, The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I don't know if you've seen that.
I've seen it. I haven't read it though.
Yeah, it's
but
got
you would
the
recommend it?
best covers in the world. So it's got like the cover of the book is like a wraparound, so it goes from front to back, and it's like this huge dragon.
Yeah.
And just below it, you've got this tiny little guy with like a sword and shield who's kind of facing up to it, but the cover's brilliant. Those books are really good. It's kind of set in like a fantasy world based on Norse mythology.
I see.
Yeah, but it's really, really
So
good.
on brand for you.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, so if anybody's looking for, and the audio books of them are really good as well. The narrator's great,
cool.
so that's definitely worth it. But I don't have anything. I'm looking at my desk here. I've actually read everything that I should be reading.
I can say that for myself.
Me either.
So, Peter, thank you so much for your time and all the wisdom. I really have to get again into the 3x structure. You kind of convinced me because I'm a pantser.
Seriously, and I did not convince you.
No, you didn't, and other people didn't.
Okay, so
either.
good job, Peter.
But,
Yeah, all I'd say about that is, right, when I say I'm a plot, so what often happens is, so I write out the 3 act structure and I write out a plot, right? But what often happens is it changes. So you don't lose the thrill of being a pantser.
Yeah.
It's not like you have everything written out.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, and it's like, because part of the thrill of writing is the discovery of what's going to happen. So like I have, even though I'm writing a book at the moment, and even on my desk here, I kind of have, the first iteration of it, and the second one, and the third one, and so it kind of evolves as you go. But I think what the structure really helps with is the discipline of making sure that the plot is moving in the right direction at the right time, that you're not indulging yourself describing this or that it's moving along properly,
But this I have this big summary of my plot that I write before I start writing the book, so I know where I'm going. I know what's important in the plot, but I don't write it out. I don't write out every scene. I don't have this. This happens that's the inciting incident. What's that point right at the beginning after 10% or something, and I don't know what's I don't know when this happens. It just happens. Mainly, and then sometimes it's really just at that point where it should be. So it's organically. Maybe I have just I just lived the 3x structure without using it consciously. I don't know. Yeah. So again,
Peter,
thank you so much.
It was such a great chat.
Yes,
really.
It was.
It's a pleasure, guys.
And
Thanks
very,
very much.
very affirming and encouraging at the same time.
Yes,
So
yes,
thank you so much for that.
Thanks, guys. It was great to be on, and thanks for having me. And it was great to meet you both in London, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's hope we see each other again.
Yes.
Anita,
I'm sure we
And
will.
yeah,
Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Bye.
thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks.
What did inspire you about this interview? What's the main thing you took out of it? Because I think there's a lot. I actually couldn't decide. Could you, Freya?
I think what was most inspiring to me was the passion with which Peter spoke about his own books. You could just tell that he loves those stories he's writing, and which is one of the most amazing things about authors. And it's just, it's something I could relate to, and I liked him even more when he talked about his books, if that's possible, because he was just so in love with the worlds that he's entering through his books, and that's amazing.
That's so true. That's so true. And if you want to be a guest in this podcast, just write a comment or write to us, write an email, and we'll talk about this. Have a beautiful day.
See you again soon. And we can't wait to hear from you. Bye-bye.
Bye.